Pinocchio's Mouth is a pretty great episode of Two and a Half Men. This is the 8th episode of the 6th season. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And it starts off with Charlie in bed with Chelsea. Chelsea is played by Jennifer Taylor, and we find out that they've always stayed at Charlie's house whenever they've spent the night together. And Chelsea, understandably, wants Charlie to make the effort to go to her house. And that's part of the main narrative. The other part of the narrative focuses on Jake. And this starts off in the kitchen when Alan asks Jake what he wants to do for the day. And Alan is surprised, as is Berta, when Jake said anything as long as it's something we do together. And we get a little bit of suspense for maybe a minute at the most as we wonder what Jake has done that he's sucking up to Alan. And we find out, just as Alan is about to phone Judith, that Jake got thrown off of the school bus for mooning. And Alan decides to punish Jake, and he's allowed no entertainment for 2 weeks, which seems a little bit harsh, but it's also a punishment for Alan, because Jake accepts his punishment, leaves the room, and within about 3 seconds at the most, he comes back in and just says, "I'm bored," which I have to say is very realistic and definitely shows that a punishment for the child, as necessary as it may be, is also going to be a punishment for the parents. Charlie is then getting ready to go to Chelsea's, or at least he's considering it, which is fair enough, but he realises it's going to be a 45-minute drive. He's not acknowledging that that means that Chelsea has to drive 45 minutes to get to his house, and he goes there, he does the right thing, and he can't sleep. He's worried about his car because there's only on-street parking, and he's on the wrong side of the bed, and I have to say, I agree with Charlie to an extent. I feel like he should have made the effort sooner, but also I am the kind of person, I'm quite difficult, because on the one hand, I want to be in my own space, where I have my own things, my own routines, my own side of the bed, but also I don't want somebody else in my space, so I'd rather go to their house. So I'm very difficult to please. So either way, I just do whatever the other person wants, because either way, I find it really awkward and uncomfortable. So I understand, as I'm sure many people do, where Charlie is coming from. And we'll come back to Charlie in a second. Meanwhile, Jake is watching TV at home when he shouldn't be. Alan hears the noise of the television, so of course he goes into the front room. Jake hears him and he scurries. And he goes out one door as Alan comes in the main room. And Alan sees the popcorn, realises what Jake must have done, and he pretends to walk up the stairs, and he makes the sounds of his footsteps. And I forgot what happened. I'd seen this episode before, of course. I've seen the show many times, but it's been quite a long time since I saw this one, and I thought Jake was going to open the door and get busted immediately because he thought Alan had walked up the stairs. But instead, Jake tries to open the door, and it's locked, so he's stuck outside, which I just thought was unexpected and very, very funny. We then come back to Charlie. And he's given up. He can't sleep. He can't deal with this. So he's about to leave. He steps on a cat. The cat yowls. Chelsea wakes up. And she tells Charlie that if he can't do this, just go home. And he does. The following morning, I love this moment. It's so funny. The following morning, Alan finds Jake outside. Jake had slept on the deck because obviously he was locked out and he couldn't exactly let himself back in, like through the main door, and knock on the door without Alan realising what had happened. And he's asleep and there's a seagull just sitting on him, and it filled me with so much dread, as I'm quite scared of seagulls. And then he had bird poop on the back of his head, which is even worse. It just basically told me, don't sleep outside. Don't sleep on the beach. I don't understand people who can do that and find it an enjoyable experience. Maybe a tent on the beach, I could maybe do that, but sleeping out in the open, definitely not something I could deal with. And Charlie then confesses to Alan that he's finding this difficult because he's stuck in his routine, and I think that's exactly it, because he's so used to not so much getting his own way. It's not, in my opinion, it's not Charlie saying, I want it my way, or we're not doing it. I think it is just a case of he is so used to sleeping on his side of the bed, going to his bathroom, going through his routine, that it's always going to be difficult to break that. And when you have to not just change your routine, but change it to somebody else's style, then it's going to be difficult. And I could really relate to Charlie. Jake then plays Smoke on the Water on the piano with his tongue, which was disgusting, but it sounded great. And Charlie's then getting ready to go and have another go and stay at Charlie's at Chelsea's again. And Berta brings him out this giant bag she's packed for him with everything he needs and more. I think, yes, a good approach to dealing with this would be to take things with you that might help you keep your routine. But taking bed sheets to change the other person's bed sheets, not really a great idea. And the Pinocchio reference refers to the toilet seat. Charlie said at one point that he has one morning business meeting with Pinocchio, which was quite an image. And it doesn't work, unfortunately. And while that's happening, Jake is in Charlie's bath, just a dry bath, watching the television in Charlie's bathroom, which is it's quite nice actually. It links to something earlier on in the episode when Charlie was with Chelsea. He asked why she didn't have a television in her room, and he pointed out that she should have one in every bedroom, every main room, plus the bathroom. And then a few minutes later, we see Jake watching said television in Charlie's bathroom. So I thought that was just quite nice. And obviously, Alan finds him, tells him to get out, and apparently Charlie's got a toilet seat warmer. And I actually genuinely think that that's a disgusting concept. I just don't like the idea, because ordinarily if you sit on a warm toilet seat, it means that somebody's been sitting on it quite recently, and it's just a strange feeling. So the idea of a toilet seat that actually warms up, I mean, I guess for middle of the night in the middle of winter bathroom breaks, but other than that, I don't like the concept. But Alan does. He starts rubbing it, and definitely is a fan of Charlie's bathroom. Charlie then is back with Chelsea, of course, and he's still struggling. So she just tells him, and I admire this. I admire this about Chelsea. She tells him to just go home, and we'll stay at yours from now on, because he's trying, but in trying, he's creating so much chaos for Chelsea and is disrupting her routine and making changes to her bedroom. So in that moment, the better option is to just stay at Charlie's. And I'm not saying people should do that. I'm not saying that if you'd rather stay at yours, but your partner wants you to stay at theirs, I'm not saying you should go there and cause havoc and make them realise it's better to stay at yours. But clearly it works. And I don't think that was Charlie's intention, of course. I genuinely think he was trying, but he had to try in a way that was unfortunately disruptive. And he ends up going back home, and he's feeling quite relieved about this. And the last thing we see, it's absolutely brilliant. Charlie goes into the bathroom, and it seems like Alan's drawn a bubble bath. And this is another moment where it's maybe not completely predictable either. I'd forgotten about this. And it seems like Alan's going to walk into the bathroom behind Charlie and realise what's happened. Maybe Alan's going to come in with a towel around his waist or something, and a shower cap on his head. That's what I could see as being funny. What happened was even funnier. Charlie leans over the bath, swipes away the bubbles, and all we see is Alan's face. And I just thought it was brilliant. Very, very well done. Very funny. So ultimately a really, really enjoyable episode. A lot of funny moments. I think we have some great relatability to here, whether you can relate to Charlie as somebody who is stuck in their routine, or Chelsea, who is trying to get their partner to stay at theirs. And I'd love to know if people have a preference. As I said, I prefer to stay in my own space, but I also don't like bringing people into my space. So I'm kind of very difficult in that regard. I honestly haven't got the slightest idea in general what I prefer. And I guess I prefer neither, which is more awkward than anything else. But I understand where Charlie's coming from, and he tried. I don't think he went about it in completely the right way, but he tried, and that's the main thing. And I think Chelsea could see he was trying as well, and that's why she didn't just call it off. She just said, we'll stay at yours. She didn't just say, no, you're ridiculous, let's break up. So I think there were some good decisions made, and some bad decisions. Ultimately, though, the episode itself is not too bad at all. Pinocchio's mouth is a pretty enjoyable episode of 2.5 Men.